Welcome along to another iris folding tutorial. This time we're going to be having a go at this, well, you can either call it a sun or a sunflower. This one I have made, and it could really go as either, but on this one you've definitely got the little plant pot. It's a slightly different kind of pattern. I ended up settling on this octagon arrangement in the end, but you could easily just put your little plant pot on to make your sunflower. So you'll be able to find on my website some instructions on how to do it, and you are going to need the pattern. I do put some colour suggestions, but it's entirely up to you what you go for. And what I've kind of done on here is what I did in the original one, but I thought I was going to have a go today at doing a reddy orange sunflower as opposed to going for the oranges and yellows that I've already done. So you'll need, as I say, a pattern, and you want to make sure that this is secured in place with a little bit of blue tack. So just make sure you've got a couple of blobs in the corners for your pattern. You're then going to need your aperture, so you are going to need to have the pattern cut out. You can either use a cutting machine to do that, or you can use a craft knife as well. The hardest bit for this is making sure that you match up which way, because the design is hand drawn. There's a particular way that it sits, because with iris folding we're always working on the back of the design, because then when we wait and do the big reveal, it will be on the other side. So we want to make sure that we're securing this template in place. So a little bit more blue tack, and we'll just secure this one. And like I say, this design is not symmetrical at all. It's kind of all hand drawn by me, so you do definitely need to have it facing the right way round, and you need to have got it in the right orientation as well. The reason why I'm using this kind of size rather than doing kind of a square is just so that I've got the option of doing whichever card that I want, whether I want to do it as a square format or more kind of, this would fit more on a 5x7 kind of better, and then adding on the little plant pot on the bottom. So the other things that you're going to need, some sellotape. You can use any sellotape you like, but I tend to find that using a really nice heavy duty dispenser is great, because you then only need to use one hand to be able to dispense your tape, which is going to be so much easier when you're trying to hold things in place on your design. As we've already used, the blue tack is the other item that we need, and you're going to need a nice sharp pair of scissors so you get a nice clean cut. You're also going to need some papers. Now, as I say, I've kind of got a selection here. These are some that I did from kind of the previous design left over, but I do fancy going for kind of some reds today in this sunflower. And I've also got a couple of, these were kind of wrapping kind of paper that's come from a parcel. That was off one of my paper gang boxes. So it's great to do recycling. Originally, iris folding was done with envelopes. So I do love being able to use recycled. These sort of sheets of paper are origami paper, and you're really looking for something that's around 70 GSM. So I know kind of some of the other papers that I'm looking to use might be a little bit thicker, the ones that I'm kind of recycling, but with those it'll just mean we'll use kind of foam pads are the best thing to then raise up your design when you're mounting it onto a card. So the main thing to remember with iris folding is start at number 1 and always go in order of number. So don't think, oh, I can see that that bit has the same colour. Don't decide to follow the colours. So on the actual kind of pattern that I've done on here, you'll see it kind of says yellow or orange. So I'm going to actually use red today, but 1 to 24. So it tells you what when to change your colours depending upon whatever colour you've done. That's why I've got colour A, colour B, colour C, etc., so that you can write down exactly which colour you're working with. The other thing you can do is actually just snip off a little tiny piece of whatever colour that you're using it and actually stick it next to it, because then that'll help you to remember which one it is that you're using. So we're going to start with number 1 on here. Now, the basic method with iris folding is you want to cut some little strips of paper, and I'd say we're cutting probably about 1.5 kind of centimetres to 2 centimetre thickness. Now, I know with this pattern, with how many bits I've got to go around, I'm going to need at least probably 3 or 4 of these, because as the pattern says, number 1 to 24 is all going to be the same colour. So with this, we then take our piece of paper and we fold over. Now hopefully you can see on here that I've not folded it completely in half. It's about 1/3 to 2/3. And the edge that we work on is this lovely folded edge here. It's, the way I remember it is it's iris folding, so we're working on that nice straight edge, which means that actually it doesn't matter how kind of uneven our cutting is or anything. Now the first one on this pattern is the trickiest, because we need to get it virtually exact on the measurements where the little tiny in part of that goes. So we want to join it from right at this little point here to this little point here, and this is the only one where we're going to need to be really quite precise on. So where the number 1 is, we want to place that folded line over the solid line on our pattern. So we're going to start from that small little point there, going up to the next point, and that's going to be where I'm going to make my first cut. And then I place that folded edge onto that part of my design, and then I get my sellotape, and this is why I say it's much easier if you've got a heavy duty dispenser. That means you can just use it with one hand. And then you're going to sellotape in place that section. Now, the next section coming up, we've got to cover number 2. And we've got the firm, steady line of number 2 here that we need to cover. So again, we're going point to point. So we're going to cover, and actually it's the first 2 that we need to be quite precise with. After that, we don't need to be as precise. So we cover over that line and the whole of that number 2 section. You want to make sure you're securing your sellotape away from the aperture, away from the hole. So just as long as you don't put any sellotape on this area, you're going to be fine. So the next one, as I say, this time we don't have to go point to point, because it doesn't matter if we overlap on this side, but we do want to be precise on this point here. So we can roughly this time. But what we're going to do is we're going to place this section first to cover the 3 and go fully over. And as I say, it doesn't matter if we overlap now on the other side, and secure in place. We're going to do the same with number 4. So again, we're going to roughly measure and then go from the point on this side and then make sure the overlaps on that side. This is just going to make sure that your design looks really neat and tidy when you're finished, and secure in place. Number 5. So again, because I've only got a little bit left and I know that a little tiny bit's not going to fit, I'm just going to go from the point there, overlap for number 5, and there we go. So I'm on to my next piece. So again, I need to do the fold again. And you'll see, it doesn't matter. That side's much thinner than that side. It's not going to matter at all. So number 6, again, we'll roughly estimate. And make sure we're matching that point, and it doesn't matter if we overlap the other side. So we keep on going round following the numbers. So we've just done number 6, moving on to number 7. So again, we don't have to be exact. We just want to make sure we're matching up that point, following with our fold onto that solid line to cover the next number. So we're next moving on to number 8. Now, if you've never done iris folding before, this is a nice straightforward pattern, but it's definitely a lengthier pattern. So lots of the other patterns that I've done are probably around kind of 30 to 40 of these sections, whereas as you can see, this one's going up to 81. So if you'd like to have a try on a bit of a quicker project to start off with, you might prefer to try one of my other projects that are online. But like I say, it's still a really, really good one for a beginner to have a go at, as long as you're happy that it's going to be just a bit of a lengthier project. So we've just done number 9. We're going to get another strip, fold over, and measure this one in place. Oh, I've just looked to the side of me and realised that yet again, every time I do one of these tutorials, I always forget to say, hi, I'm Lisa. And I wrote myself a note and I still managed to forget. I've literally just seen it at the side. So yes, hello, I'm Lisa. I love crafting. I'm happy to do any crafts. I'll give anything a go. But my favourite ones at the moment are iris folding and a bit of macrame. And what I like about both of these is that they take up quite a small amount of space. You don't need many resources to have a go, and they're quite low energy as well. And I'm have some chronic health conditions. I'm definitely would class myself as a spoonie. So for that reason, I definitely find that projects that don't take kind of a lot of my energy are really, really good to go for. I just decided to use the fresh bit because I think this bit might fit number 14 afterwards. So again, we're putting onto that corner bit of 13, twisting him round. And I've not actually done a red sunflower before, so I'm interested to see how this one comes out. I just thought it might look quite striking with the red. So we're still going round, and the pattern, as I say, is for the 1 to 24 to be all the same colour. However, if you want just the tips, so if you're trying to kind of copy a particular design of flower, if you just want these little tips to be one colour, stop at 16, then change to a new colour for then 17 to 24, and you'll just get a really small kind of change in ring. I'm going to carry on in this because I want quite a striking kind of red. So I've done 16, so we're now moving on to 17. And hopefully you're starting to get into the flow of this a little bit more. It is one of those patterns, like I say, great for beginners because it is one that's very straightforward in its design. And as I say, as long as you follow the numbers and don't try and go off on a tangent and think about colours instead, you get on really well with this. And that's for any of my iris folding design patterns. You always want to make sure that you are following the numbers in order and not following the colours. So we're just keeping on going round. So we did, after 16, we had 17, 18, and also the way I stick them down, I try and make it so that if I can't remember what number I'm on, it's easy to then just lift up and be able to see. So on this design, it's actually quite nice and straightforward because we're going around in a circle. But if on some of the more complicated patterns, it can be really helpful just to be able to have a little sneak peek at what what number you were on, so you know which number you're going to next, especially if they're not just going nicely in this kind of circular orbit. So this is the first time I've done an octagon design. One of the designs that I really like, lots of mine are based around hexagons, as it's one of my favourites. However, I've really enjoyed doing this octagon, and one of the things that I love about iris folding is it is something that can be really mindful. So once you've kind of got into especially kind of a pattern like this one, you can really just switch off and get totally absorbed in what you're doing in the pattern. The hardest bit I find with the iris folding is often deciding what colours that I actually want to do for my designs. So, and that's again with all of my patterns, there's no set colours, so I always try and give some colour suggestions, but it's entirely up to you. So I've just done 24 there, and that's the point where we are going to be moving on to the next one. So again, I've kind of put yellow or orange I did originally, but actually I'm going to go for another red, and 25 to 40 is my next. So 25 to 40 means we're going around again a couple of times. So I think I might go for this packaging. I think I might go for this. So let's have a little look at how this is going to come out. Well, with iris folding, it's much easier to do shorter strips. So if you can imagine, if you're using kind of a piece of A4, say, I would definitely be kind of cutting and making it so that they're in the shorter kind of length rather than the longest length. It just makes it much easier to do that initial fold that you need. Cut these off. Here we go. Right. So, just looking, there's slightly, is it? I think that's maybe more gloss that side, and that's maybe a bit more matte. So make sure I've got them the right way. There we go. Okie doke. So let's see. Now, because this is an octagon and because this is a really kind of symmetrical pattern, I know that if I actually cut these into half and then cut them into quarters there, so that's going to do me 1/2 of my kind of ring. So I know that I'm going to actually end up probably with the right amount that I need for this. I'm going to get these ready and prepped, and you can't do this with all of them, but like I say, because this is a nice pattern that has a some symmetry to it, I know that I'm going to be able to get away with doing this. And it just, little ways of kind of speeding up. If you still want to carry on with the same technique that we used before, just measuring out a little bit, you're more than welcome to. So here's my little stash. And now, so I was on 24. Remember, I can have a little peek and see. And so I'm starting on 25. So again, I'm putting that folded edge is going onto that and covering the 25 and that solid line. And I'm just going to be working around 26. And as you can see, having them pre-cut does make quite a bit of difference, as well as I say, the sellotape dispenser. If you haven't got a sellotape dispenser, I would prep some of the sellotape in advance and have it kind of stuck to the edge of your table or something, just to make sure that you can actually get to your pieces a lot quicker. It's otherwise you just haven't got enough arms. You need to be an octopus really if you don't have a tape dispenser. So what was on 32? My brain forgets things really easily, so we're on to 33, and this one we're going up to 40. So So we keep going all the way around. What's on 34, 35. See my brain. You can see now why I make sure that I do it so that I can just have a little peek. I'm quite excited to see what the red sunflower looks like. I've also decided colour-wise I'm going to do kind of a little bit of brown, but then probably go to a black centre for it as well. Right, all this last one there, number 40. There we go, and that's in place. So then we are going to move on to the next part. So again, I've got yellow or light brown. I think I might go for a pop of yellow, as just because this little section is a little bit kind of thinner, so I might go for a pop of yellow, I think, on this. Yes, I think I'll go for a pop of yellow. So it's 41 to 56 on this one. So let's have a little look and see. Yes, oh, that's quite a nice yellow. That's definitely going to pop. So let's cut these strips. So again, for this section we're going to need 16 pieces, but my paper this time is a bit longer than the last one. So I'm going to see if I can get what I need out of these. We'll see. If I do roughly in half and maybe into thirds, then yeah, that should cover. So again, if you would prefer to just cut each time, you can absolutely do that. Let's do in half-ish again, and then into some thirds. This is where I need my maths. We need 2 8s of 16. The way I'm cutting this, I would be getting 18 of them, so we'll be okay. We'll do one extra on here, and then we'll save that for another project, the other bit. Okie doke. So on this one, we're moving on from 40 on to 41. So like I say, I'm kind of hoping that this little yellow kind of ring will just be quite a nice pop. I think some of the pictures of sunflowers that I've looked at, the red does have this kind of striking either kind of orangey or yellow band before it gets to the seeds in the centre. So we shall see. I'm just covering up 44 next. Now I can definitely tell with the packaging that I used, it was a slightly thicker paper, so I can definitely feel it's getting quite dense in places. But again, don't worry about that, because the best way to secure your design onto a card is using some little foam pads. They work really well to be able to give you a really even flat finish kind of. So with this one again was quite chunky, but there's the way that I've kind of done the pads means it still feels like a really kind of flat design. Where was I? We've just done 48, moving on to 49. There we go. So again, you could always reduce down. So if you don't want to do kind of 2 rings round of the same colour, you could always reduce that if you would prefer to. 51. We're getting there. Oh, let's remember what colour number I was going up to. 56. 56 we're going up to. 53. So this kind of project is really good for little ones as well. So it's great for fine motor. So you're using scissors, so you've got scissor skills within there as well, kind of the folding techniques, the kind of hand-eye coordination, placing all of these in the right places. So there is lots. You've also got kind of following the numbers. So it's almost a bit like a dot to dot type thing, where you're kind of following the numbers, but in a much more kind of practical, kind of hands-on way. Right, so we've got to 56. I'm now going to move on to a brown. So I think I'm going to go for these. Let's have a little look and see. So I had gone for a medium brown, but I'm going to go for a slightly darker brown because I think I'm going to go black for this one. So 57 to 72 is going to be our next colour. So let's snip these off. So this has got some slightly longer pieces on it. So I'll double check and see whether we can get away with doing our quick version of doing these. What we need to know is whether that will fit one of our half sections. Oh, just. I don't know. I think I'm tempted to go back and be a bit more cautious. Don't fancy like being a rebel today. So 57 was the next one that we're going to be doing, because there was 56. So let's cut this one off. It does definitely help as well having a sharp pair of scissors. These are my iris folding scissors, so they basically don't get used for anything other than iris folding, to make sure that I get a nice sharp clean cut every time. So I've got a little box, and it's one of the kind of tips that I would definitely share. If you find that being creative, often what holds you back is the prep, and getting kind of materials and resources ready, and also the packing away at the end. So especially as I end up with very limited energy levels, I have a tub, and in that tub has my basic iris folding. So it's got my sellotape in there, it's got my scissors. So I basically have like a set one just for iris folding. My blue tacks in there as well. I have kind of a pack of multicoloured origami kind of paper, and then the other thing I always keep in there is one of the blank apertures, so that I am always ready to go. I don't need to go and find kind of things. I don't need to move around much to do it. I can do this on a tray on my lap somewhere, and it just means I end up being a lot more creative because I've taken out the stress of trying to get everything prepared. So it definitely works much better that way for me. So we're just heading round now. I'm going to double check. We're going up to 72 on this. So we're doing these big sections, and then we've got some little mini bits as well to do. It also means then when it's time to pack away, I just pop everything back in this same little caddy, and then I am ready to go the next time. 67. So you kind of get like a little hint of what it might look like from a colour point of view as you're going, and you can kind of see the colours. And don't be tempted to peek early. So don't, make sure this is all secured in place, and definitely don't peek. It is worth waiting for that big reveal of your iris folding. So we've got a couple 3 more to go. 3 more of these, just little pieces. This is where I often save even like little pieces like this if they weren't to need to be used on a pattern. I've got like a little stash of kind of smaller pieces, and I do have some projects that are great for using up leftovers. So my seascape and landscape designs are ideal for using up just single pieces. So obviously with this one you need to make sure you've got enough paper to be able to kind of do your colours kind of all the way around. But like I say, there are some designs where actually you can just use up odd little pieces. So yes, so these little pieces will get saved. Okie doke, we've gone up to 72. So next we are moving on to dark black or brown, and I'm going to go dark brown or black even. I'm going to go for some black on this because I think it will be a really nice contrast with the red. So 73 to 80 is that. So I've got a little piece. Now again, normally I would be using origami paper, which is about 70 GSM. However, this is a kind of slightly thicker, I'd say. I think this is about 90 GSM, and it's only because it's what I've got left over. And I thought I'd use that rather than going for something else. So after 72, we're going to head to 73, which is right next door. So again, we're going to do the same bit again. Now, each of these ones here are the similar size. I'm going to just have a little snip, do it a bit quicker on these. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I've got little bits I'm going to go in half, and those are going to be my little final pieces. Okie doke, so 73. Ooh, yes, it does look very different putting the black down actually. Often I do quite like using a black in a project, and there's one of my projects on the website is a lantern, which I actually cut kind of the aperture out in black, and that just looks really striking. Actually, the colours on this are reminding me of the lantern. So we've just done 76, 177. We're on the home stretch. 78. It always starts to feel quite exciting when you get to this point, because you know it's not long before you're going to reveal. I've got my finger stuck under that bit. And the last one of the folds, number 80. Now 81, and you'll see it on here, I put down sparkly card. Now you can use whatever you like. If you've only got kind of origami paper, use origami paper. However, it's really nice just to have a little bit of something exciting in the middle. So kind of on the previous project that I've kind of done, I had some kind of textured card. This one had some like more of a kind of sparkly bronze card. I've got some kind of little gold sheets as well, but for this one I have got the sparkly black card. Now with this final piece, you just want to cut a piece that fits over that section in the middle. You don't need to fold it or anything, and like I say, it doesn't matter if it's card or paper, and then you just stick that completely over. Now if you've got any bits that are kind of stuck up and haven't got tape, you can always go around with a little bit more tape. That will be fine. We're now ready for the big reveal. Be very careful when you are peeling off your blue tack. Don't worry if you've got a little bit of blue tack left on. Ooh, oh, I like. Looking very, very different to the original. So, and you don't have to stick with kind of sunflower colours. You could go for any sort of flower colours that you would like to go for, or do it any colour you wish. With your blue tack, rather than trying to pull at the blue tack, get a little blob of your blue tack and use that just to remove the other blue tack. It comes up a lot cleaner. Now once you've got this, you can then cut down. Now the only thing that you just need to be careful of is you will have some tape on there as well, so don't worry, you don't have to kind of cut so that you're not on the tape, but just be mindful kind of when you're cutting that you don't want to go kind of too far through and onto your design. So, but you could definitely kind of cut that down, and mounting up does make a really big difference. So even if you're, it really does make things stand out a lot more if you decide to kind of mount things up, and you could do all sorts. I think kind of it would probably look quite nice with on kind of a gold. I kind of generally test out beforehand. Let's go for a bit more matte. I've gone for something a bit more glossy there. So you can just test out and have a play. Like I say, I always put on these, so I put on these corners here, I put foam pads. And then once I've kind of secured that in place, I then kind of trim again. Then I use some double-sided tape to then stick it onto my next piece, and double-sided tape to then put it onto my card. So this is how we ended up with this one, and it's then on a card, and it means all of your workings disappear, so you don't have any of that. If you work directly onto a card blank, that's absolutely fine. Just put something over the back to be able to cover your workings, and it just neatens up your card for you. So I'm really pleased with how that one's come out with the red. You can obviously, like I've done on this one, I just used a thin little bit of quilling paper, but you could easily just cut out any piece of paper. And then again, I've used the foam pads just to make it give it that raised appearance on there. The other thing I would say is when you cut out your design, don't get rid of little bits like this. These are perfect to be able to decorate, do some rubber stamping with. So yes, I definitely like leaving kind of nothing to go to waste. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If there are if I've whet your appetite with iris folding, do have a look at my other tutorials that are available on the channel, and as I say, you'll be able to download the patterns off of my website. Thanks ever so much for watching. See you next time.